Hi, and welcome back to LWCCLive. It's been a couple of days since I spoke to you last, but it's good to be back in front of you. For those of you who caught the live stream on Sunday, you heard me talking about my nice new made-up word, ACTitude, made up of two parts, acts and attitude. And this is in relation to worshipping, and especially worshipping within hardship. I want to dig into that a little bit more because obviously it is a made-up word, but it's not a made-up principle. And for us to get through tough times, for us to get through good times, and in fact, regardless of the times, we should be worshipping God. It's the way to draw close to our Father. So one of the verses I left you with was from John 4:23-24. It simply says, "Yet a time is coming and has come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For they're the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth." So a lot of the sung worship that we do, and when we talk about worship, we often mean sung worship. But a lot of that is done in spirit. And when it goes on to say in truth, it starts to stay with our whole lives, our whole heart, which includes our words, it includes our actions, it includes the things that we do. So to dig into that a little bit deeper, I want to turn to a bit of scripture and then a bit of human wisdom that came from scripture. Matthew 15:8-9 gives us a great warning. And this is actually Jesus talking. The Pharisees, which were the religious leaders of the time, were trying to catch Jesus out. And on the subject of it was actually the Sabbath, but a kind of worship. They were saying, why do your followers not follow this rule? And Jesus gave this stark reminder, and I want to give this to us, not as a threat, but as a reminder as to why it's so important that we get this right. It says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules." So when we understand something from scripture, when we understand one of God's instructions, we need to understand the whole picture. To think that worship is just 45 minutes on a Sunday morning would be to worship God in vain. It would be a false teaching. Worship is so much bigger than that. We need to be worshiping God with our whole lives and our whole hearts. Well, I'm going to read to you from Hebrews 13 a little bit later, but for the time being, many of us will have heard talk about the love languages. And the love languages is a science, it's a way of understanding, it's drawn out of scripture as well. We can see it all throughout the Bible. But it's different ways that we express and feel love. It's the root of many of our relationship problems, it's the root of many of our friendship problems too, is that we don't just speak in human language, we speak in a love language too. And they are words, they're acts, they're touch, they're time, they're gifts. There's 5. Some have gone on to build that into 7. But my question when I was thinking about worship was really, why do we focus on just one thing when it comes to expressing our love in our love language to God? Why are we limiting ourselves to words? Where are the gifts? Where's the time? Where's the touch? That might stump you if you want to think about how we might touch God. But when do we kneel in front of him? When do we sacrifice things that are physical to him? Because it's physical touch. How much time do we give him? Where do we give our gifts? There's a couple of things Jesus says, or about Jesus. Paul writes in Hebrews 13:15-16, he says, "Through Jesus, therefore, let us continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise, the fruits of lips that openly profess his name, and do not forget to do good and to share with others. For with such sacrifices, God is pleased." So we are talking about praise, but we're also talking about acts. I also remember when Jesus talks about those who do for the least, they do for me. So when you give somebody the shirt for their back, when you give somebody food or water, you're doing it for him. Guys, this is the stark reminder that we should worship during the hard times as well as we should worship during the good times. But worship is your whole life. I want to focus in on those 5 love languages this week, and this is your homework if you'd like it, to take a moment to think about how we could worship God in each of those areas. How can we love him with our words? Yeah, we have singing and we have our prayer time too, but is there any other way? Are you a poet? Can you write? Could you write a story? Could you write a letter to God? That would be awesome. What acts could you do today that might bless God and show that you're worshiping him? What gifts could you give God? Could you give them directly to him? Could you give them directly through the church? Could you give them directly to somebody in need? What time can you give him? What time can you give his saints, his people? Maybe that's ringing somebody. Maybe that's actually spending a little bit of time in meditation, prayer and fasting with him. How can you touch God? I think this is one that one or two of you might struggle with. It's certainly one that stumped me today. But I want to touch the heart of my Father in heaven. I want to be that close to him. So when we're worshipping in hardship, it's going to be hard enough. But when we try and encompass it in our whole lives, I think that's going to make it a whole lot easier and draw us a whole lot closer to our Father in heaven. So guys, I'm praying for you. Be blessed. I can't wait to talk about attitude tomorrow in our continued series on persevering in prayer and our lovely new made up word, ACTitude. So God bless, and I'll see you soon. Take care.